Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Heart to Heart, our English language programme here on Angelus TV. The programme's in English. You're all very welcome. And my guest this afternoon is Bishop John Arnold, who's Bishop of the Salford Diocese, which includes Greater Manchester. Bishop John was Auxiliary Bishop in Westminster before this appointment, and titular Bishop of Lindisfarne. He has been the Bishop of Salford for the last 10 years and is the lead Bishop for the Bishops' Conference on the Environment. And another title is the Guardian of Creation, and the Catholic Responsibility for Animals, Catholic Association for Animals. Welcome, Bishop John.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for making time to come here to Romania.
No, I'm delighted to be here. Thank you.
And to make time to come in here to the studio. Before we start our conversation, I'd just like to read a verse of As Kingfishers Catch Fire, the second part of it, because it seemed to speak to me of you. What I do is me, for that I came. I say more. The just man justices, keeps grace, that keeps all his goings graces, acts in God's eye what in God's eye he is, Christ. For Christ plays in 10,000 places, lovely in limbs and lovely in eyes not his, to the Father through the features of men's faces. And we met in Santiago, and I was first struck by your ability just to be yourself. And as we spoke, I discovered that you had started studies in law, justice, injustice. Can you speak to us a little bit about your early influences?
Certainly. I think I was about 6 years of age when I was clear in my own mind I was going to be a lawyer. That was really because that was my father's profession, and it just seemed obvious to me that I would follow him. And that gave me very naive, I'm sure, ideas about what justice was, obeying laws, doing what's right. And I think I really believed I was going to be a lawyer until about 16, when a priest who was teaching in the school I was at simply said one day, "John, have you thought of being a priest?" To which I made a very simple reply, no, because it had never entered my head. And I was quite clear about that. But I think it probably sowed a seed in my mind that that was something maybe I should be doing. And I was certainly very impressed by the priests and the brothers in the school. They were always encouraging, they were kind, there was a sense of justice in what they did. And I was really quite drawn to them. So although I continued down the path of qualifying in law, I was beginning to grow in that understanding that I was perhaps called to something else.
Because you began studies at Oxford in law and then continued studying law for the priesthood also at the college in Gregorian.
Yes, I completed the legal studies for a lawyer as a barrister. And then I went to join the order that had taught me, the Rosminians, the Institute of Charity. And they sent me to Rome to study for the priesthood. And whilst I was in Rome, I felt that much as I admired the Rosminians, it wasn't what I thought I should be. And I was adopted by the Archdiocese of Westminster, and I continued my studies in Rome. And when it came to specialising for a licence, I was quite drawn to scripture, but they said, "Oh no, you're a lawyer. You need to be a canon lawyer, so you'll do canon law." So I had to do another 3.5 years of legal studies to become a canon lawyer as well, which incidentally I haven't used very much in my ministry at all.
And have your ideas about what is injustice changed over the years now that you have such an important role?
Oh, I'm sure it's changed. When I was growing up, I think justice was to do with laws being broken and penalties imposed. But I think I've broadened the idea of injustice to not just what is prescribed, but what is neglected. And that a great deal of injustice is being done in our world because we're simply not taking responsibility for the things for which we are responsible. And in that primarily is our care for our common home, the environment, that we've simply not seen the justice of looking after and caring for our common home, and that has led to a great deal of injustice in our world.
So we're just not seeing what can lead to injustice if only we didn't omit.
No. Well, we're ignoring the responsibilities we have. We're exploiting our planet to a horrendous degree, and we're polluting the planet now, and we're seeing much more in the last few years the impact of climate change events, which are impacting on the whole world. I keep a list for myself, a sort of diary, and in the last 2 years, over 116 different countries have been affected by unusual and extreme climate events. That is pretty appalling, and I'm sure I haven't got the complete list, but I've got that many nations affected.
I'm sure when we were growing up, we would never have thought of saying in confession about our neglect or ignorance, ignoring what we were doing to harm the planet. So,
no, I'm sure we wouldn't. And I suppose if you look at some of the Psalms, they are full of praising God and offering thanks for the beauty of creation. But we've simply had them as prayers without really thinking what they mean. And it's only really when we're faced with the reality of pollution, environmental climate events, droughts, wildfires, storms, typhoons, they're impacting on people that we're having to think. Even in the United Kingdom in the last couple of years, we've seen some pretty awful events, and we're not used to it. You can have the occasional extreme, but we seem to have a constant an agenda of things going wrong at the moment, and we've got to come to terms with that.
Having to come to terms with... when you have adopted your coat of arms, I don't know if you adopt or you receive or...
And we can create.
Create. What was behind that? Could you just talk to us a little bit? Maybe we'll see on the screen, our viewers will see.
Well, there's two particularly important aspects. First, there are 3 sheaves of wheat. Well, I come from a city called Sheffield, which is sheaf field originally. And those are a reminder to me, first of all, of my origins in the city of Sheffield. But of course, sheaves of wheat are rather important when we're talking about things theologically and the harvest that we should be creating. The seed that falls on fertile ground yields a harvest of 30, 60, 100-fold. And that seems to me to be our purpose and our mission, to create a good harvest for the Lord. And then there's the bridge. And I'm very taken by Pope Francis saying we build bridges, not walls. And that our purpose, and particularly I think my ordained purpose, is to be a bridge for people, and not to shut the door, but to welcome people and to try and assist them in their journey of faith.
And thank you for being that bridge for this show that you're introducing our viewers to, I think the first time, an English bishop, with roots in Sheffield, and I had never made that connection with the meaning of sheaf and chef. And am I right in thinking that Sheffield was to the fore in creating public transport and trying to counteract what we were doing to the environment a few years ago?
Certainly it was quite radical in its transport policies and in its smokeless free zone. I think it was probably the first city that declared itself as a smoke-free zone. It had had some pretty appalling history with its enormous steel foundries. Sheffield was famous for its cutlery and specialised steels, and that meant big factories and a lot of pollution. So it was rather important that something radical was done.
I think I experienced it. I think I was there for a meeting maybe 25 years ago, perhaps longer. maybe, and was just really impressed by that idea then.
Yes, I remember as a child we had one or two smogs which were really quite depressingly unhealthy, and literally going outside and breathing foul air, and with the addition of not being able to see very far in front of you. That's really quite frightening.
I remember those too. That for our viewers, smog is a combination of the fog and the pollution, chemicals in the air. So Bishop John, you've had some unusual titles for me. Chaplain to the Papal Household and titular Bishop of Lindisfarne. Would you be able to just tell us a little bit about the meaning behind those titles and something of interest that happened while you were in those roles?
Well, chaplain to the Royal Papal Household is simply Monsignor, and that is, I suppose, a role of some authority among the clergy, which seems to me, in a sense, is it a contradiction, because I see priesthood as service, and to claim that someone has authority within that service doesn't entirely fit with me. But I can see that within the structure of a diocese, it's important that some priests take particular roles which give them a degree of authority in certain fields. So I was a Monsignor as a priest when I became the Vicar General in the Diocese of Westminster. The titular Bishop of Lindisfarne was very important to me. As an auxiliary bishop, you're given a title of a defunct see. So historically, it was a diocese. And I was very privileged, because I think most titular sees are in North Africa, in the Middle East, early sees. And this is Lindisfarne, which is on the north-east coast of England. And it seemed to me the very best title I could have. And I'd not been there, but soon after I was made a bishop with this title, I went to see the place. I have absolutely no formal responsibilities in Lindisfarne, but I went to see it, and it has proved to be quite transforming for me, because it's the home of Celtic spirituality. It was really the birthplace of Christianity in the north of England in the, what would it have been, the 7th century, with St. Aidan and St. Cuthbert. And there are certain aspects to Celtic spirituality which seem so important to me, particularly God in all things, which I find so helpful, that things don't just happen remotely from God. Everything happens somehow within a sphere of influence, and he can be found in all things, even in difficult things where we may learn the right way of doing something that's gone wrong. So I've been very pleased with pursuing that idea of God in all things in my own life and ministry, and trying to promote that too, where I am in my preaching.
And you have a particular gift for preaching there.
Well, thank you.
3 times I've listened to you. Each time somebody has spoken to me afterwards about how they've been touched by what you've said. So thank you for sharing that with us. And reminding us that the northeast of England, or Great Britain, and England I think is correct, isn't it? Northeast of England, wasn't as influenced by Roman settlements and culture as the rest of the country, and that Celtic Christianity. And Lindisfarne has remained a place of pilgrimage, hasn't it?
Oh, very much so. Yes, the Celtic monks came originally from Ireland, and they came to the west coast of Scotland mainly, and their main place was Iona. And it was only when Oswald became king in Northumbria in 664, I think, he became a Christian, and he wanted that Christian influence in his realm. So he sent to Iona, to the abbot, Segene, and asked for monks to go and settle on Lindisfarne and begin to preach the word of God from there. And Lindisfarne suddenly became a very important base for Christianity and had a remarkable impact over the next 2 centuries for that sense of growth and rebirth of Christianity, which had been there under the Romans, But when they left in 410, they took most of Christianity with them.
And coming back to your finding God in all things, so from Lindisfarne to becoming the lead bishop of the Bishops' Conference, for encouraging us to turn our eyes to what we're doing and to make changes. Can you tell us a little bit about this groundbreaking project at your Wardley Hall, is where you live?
Yes.
The Laudato Si project, which is why I originally wanted to call you, and it's fascinating. From myself, it's the first time I've heard of a bishop's palace being turned into a place where people can find God.
Right. Well, yes, when I came to Salford, it was to the Bishop's House, Wardley Hall, which is important to the people of the diocese because there's a major relic there, the skull of St Ambrose Barlow, and people in consultation wanted the bishop to live there. But it's in considerably extensive grounds. So in 2015, Pope Francis published Laudato Si, and within weeks I got a phone call saying that I was now to be the lead on the environment for the Bishops' Conference, and I had to get to be much more knowledgeable about the environment, and in conversation it just seemed that there was here a very good possibility, an opportunity to show Laudato Si in practice by converting some of the grounds, increasingly more of the grounds, to a Laudato Si project and purpose. So we have a centre now which has all sorts of lessons to be learnt about domestic growing of food, about well-being, about how we look after our planet. And we've got a woodland trail, which is a sense of being with nature. And it's really taken off with people's interest. In January to June of last year, we had over 3,000 visitors and a lot of school children, many of whom have really not experienced nature at all. And what we hope is that the school groups, the parish groups, the different organisations come and they learn and they go away and they can reproduce some of the ideas in their own school playgrounds, because we've got a lot of schools that have a lot of spare space, and this can be used very creatively, and the children really seem to enjoy it. And I think one of the main purposes is, although that generation really face some enormous problems, we don't want to talk in terms of fear at all, but enthusiasm for care of creation.
So, enthusing others
Yes.
rather than planting fear about, because we hear that so many young people are experiencing mental illnesses now because of...
Yes, a recent study said that 75% of young people were either anxious or afraid because of environmental problems. And that's really a most appalling inheritance for them. So to bring them to listen to them rushing around and really enjoying seeing how things grow and being with nature, and go back to their schools. I've been to various schools around my diocese where I've been really so impressed. There was one school I went to in Blackburn, and the whole school seemed to be outside. It was 9:30 in the morning. I thought they should really be in class. And I got out of the car, and this 7-year-old said, "Bishop, will you follow me? I want to show you our raised garden." And he took me over and he said, "Well, we plant the beetroot here and onions here, and we've got some celery and some lettuce." And he went on for about 10 minutes, and then he suddenly turned to me and said, any questions, Bishop?" And I went to the head teacher and I said, "Well, all your pupils are outside, shouldn't they be in class?" He said, "Actually, they want to learn about the environment, read about it, write about it, learn about the science." He said, "Our literacy levels are going up because they're enjoying what they're doing so much."
So the spin-off effect is having academic results as well.
Yeah.
And why wouldn't people realise that? Because obviously if you're interested in something, you're going to read around it. You're going to follow it up and pursue it.
Well, I think that education is going to succeed so much more if the pupils enjoy what they're doing. If it's just another lesson which is full of dry figures and sums and things, that's probably not going to interest many of them. But if there's a real sense of purpose in what they're doing, then I think they will want to learn more.
Sense of purpose is an interesting phrase that I think you've used also about your own life, that if we have a sense of purpose, it will be what will carry us forward.
Well, I was very struck by a meditation by St. John Henry Newman, which I've known for a long time, but I think it made a bigger impact within the last couple of years. And it begins, God created me to do him some definite purpose. He's committed some work to me, he's not committed to another. I have my mission. And I believe that we can say that and take it very seriously. And God loves us so much that he actually loves us uniquely enough to give us our mission. And because he gives us a mission, he gives us the gifts and the talents and the skills that we need to fulfill that mission, which gives us a real purpose. We're not just out there being told, oh, be good, follow the example of my son Jesus. And, no, it's, I love you, and I've got a purpose and a vocation and a mission for you. And that speaks very loudly to me.
I'm just remembering that child of 7 saying about the raised garden. I would never have heard that expression as a 7-year-old. No. But we grow in our learning of this. I'm just wondering how you deal with negative reaction to your dream for the environment. Do you have any lessons for us in that, in how to stick to our mission?
Well, I think it would be very easy to be sarcastic and cynical to people who are in their own way cynical about the environment. So I would always try not to argue, but simply to say, isn't there increasing evidence? This is happening to us now, and we can all play our part, however small it may seem, in repairing the damage that we've done. And I'm sure that there are still quite a lot of climate change deniers around, not least in politics and industry. But I think if there's a growing voice that's saying we need to take action and look at the impact of climate change, it's a reality, then we will draw in more people to a firm understanding. But it's connecting them not just to saying, oh, we've got climate change, what a disaster. It's, what can I do? And there are so many little things that people can do that will add up to a very big impact. Pope Francis used a wonderful image quite recently. He said, all the great reservoirs and rivers in the world are made up of single drops of water. And let's acknowledge, with single drops, we might not seem to be anything, but we are essential. And if we're not there, then there will be no reservoirs and great rivers made up of single drops of water. But we can make an impact. And it's trying to educate people when they do come to an understanding and saying, well, there are dozens of little things that we can do, each one of us, every day, that don't really change our lives in any detriment, but do have an impact.
Yes. And I'm aware at a distance of the Laudato Si Centre in London and Durham University's Catholic faculty now. The voices are growing, not just within the Catholic circle, obviously, but within the Catholic Church.
Yes.
The voices are growing. You must be pleased about that.
I am, and what is impressing me is that 85% of the world's population are adherents to world religions. And those religions, almost all of them, have an understanding that we must care for the environment. And what's been very important in recent months is that the Muslim scholars have brought out a document called Al-Mizan, which really sounds very much like Laudato Si. And if we can speak out, and I think in terms of religious leadership, we need to speak out, whatever faith we belong to say to the people who follow our religions, this is a common purpose. It's a global problem and a global challenge, and we must work together.
And I haven't mentioned so far, but one of your gifts is writing also, and you did write about the sacrament of reconciliation, quality of mercy, about 30 years ago, I think.
Yes.
If you were writing a book now, what voice would you be giving to it?
Well, I've been writing a book for quite a long time and trying to amend it and edit it according to things. And it's mainly based on Mark's Gospel. But the theme is really that although the disciples in Mark's Gospel are not really very good at understanding the Lord, and they need things repeating to them, and they are astonished and astounded by things, but not really understanding what he's about. But the important thing is that Jesus never gives up on them. There's always that confident renewal of his commitment to them, even after his passion and death. He comes back and he rebukes them for their lack of understanding, but he then gives them an enormous mission to go out to the whole world and proclaim the good news. So even if we're not the best as disciples, God is calling us to be and to renew and to restart. And there's never a chance of us saying, well, that's it, we're not good enough, we can't manage, we'll give up.
That speaks to me because in this role, interviewing people, I would never have thought I would have the opportunity, nor skill, nor background to interview somebody of your calibre and of such experience. And so if I can trust that God calls us and we respond, he will use
and
our drop.
Despite our constant faults and failings, our failure to understand. I mean, when the disciples come to Jesus in Mark's Gospel, after he's talked about the parable of the sower, and they say, what was the meaning of that parable? And he said, did you not understand that parable? Then how are you going to understand any of them? Implying that was the easy one, fellas.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, he goes on to explain the parable and teaches them more parables. And he never gives up on them. Even when, he tells them about he's going to suffer and die and rise again 3 times. And still don't understand it when it happens. So he's constant. And what we've got to try and be is good disciples and actually be learning the lessons.
Yeah. And if disciple means to be a learner, if we're constant learners and trying to learn the lessons, we'll
make progress.
We'll make progress. And we have this opportunity with the new year, and thank you for coming right at the beginning of this Jubilee year of hope. So we're pilgrims of hope. And we first met in Santiago, a place of pilgrimage. What can we say to others to inspire them to believe and to take that step forward as pilgrims of hope?
Well, hope is a virtue, isn't it? And it belongs to most religious faiths, but it seems to be particularly emphasized in Christianity. And it's that sense of there are problems and challenges, and we don't necessarily see the way through, but we hope, and we employ step by step those things that may be remedies, and sometimes we'll see that the final remedy is not the one we thought of in the first place, but that we're always looking forward. Hope isn't something that sees the solution, but it's what keeps us determined to find a solution and to be faithful to God working in us and through us to get to that solution. So hope is always open-ended and always challenging.
I have a placard on my wall that somebody gave me, but it actually matches the motto that I made up for myself, that there's always a solution, but it may take time. It may take time to explore or to trust that there is a solution.
Yes, problems are not usually straightforward.
No.
They're complex, and we need to grow in our understanding of the problem if we're going to find the solution. And hope is what allows us that time, that determination, and that energy to be looking for the solution that eventually will bring us to some clarity and resolution.
Thank you so much. I think we're running out of time, and I'm just so sorry to have to bring this to an end, but I'm so appreciative of your time here and your love of Romania that is so apparent to me as we've walked the streets on the feast of the baptism of the Lord yesterday.
Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you. Thank you for watching, everybody, and please continue to watch Angelus TV. Thank you again. Bye.